So welcome to this little color mixing video. I wanted to create this for you because I feel like there's so much information out there today on the internet that when you look up color mixing, it's probably 2 hours worth of videos and articles and writing. And I think it can get really confusing and you're left wondering, well, what are the takeaways? What are the most important things that I should know when I'm color mixing? And if I'm new to painting, or maybe I not necessarily just starting out, but how can I improve my paintings? What are the things that I should be looking for when it comes to mixing paint? And most importantly, how do I stop making mud? Well, I want to show you exactly how all of this works, and I want to do it in a way that is um, simple and useful. And we're not going to mix a bunch of colors up and start painting swatches out. And I'm not going to suggest that you swatch every paint tube that you own either. We're just going to keep it really basic and really simple. And we're going to start out talking about the primary colors because that's really where all of the useful information lies in this. So, primary colors. We already know what they are. They are yellow, blue, and red. And we learned this a very long time ago when we were kids. And I have some tubes of paint here. These are all watercolors. And I have a warm yellow here. And I have an Alizarin Crimson, which is a little bit of a cool red. This is another yellow, and this is a cool yellow. You can see the difference. This cad yellow and this lemon yellow. And the reason I'm showing you this is because when you have primary colors, the temperature of the color is going to affect the colors that you mix on your palette. And I'll demonstrate that for you so you can understand what I'm talking about. So this is an ultramarine blue and a phthalo blue. The blues have always confused me as far as what temperature they were. But the phthalo blue is a cooler blue, and the ultramarine is a warmer blue because it kind of leans towards a red. And you can definitely see the difference between these two. This is a cad red, and this is the alizarin crimson. So this one is significantly warmer. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little bit out of each one of these so that you can get the idea here as far as the differences go. And for me, reading an article is a lot different than watching a video and watching somebody demonstrate these concepts. It's a lot easier for me to understand when I'm seeing it or if I'm doing it myself. So that is the phthalo blue, and I'll see what I can get out of this ultramarine blue. There's not a lot of this left. Okay. And in the art world, what I'm laying out right here would be considered a split primary palette, which means that there is a warm and cool version of each of the primary colors. I have a little bit of black down here just so that I can show you what adding black to your colors will do. They do make a white watercolor paint, and I don't typically use that. And the reason I don't use that in watercolor is because it'll make the watercolor opaque and it makes it look a little bit chalky. So if I were using regular paint, so I have some gouache paint here, and I just wanted to touch on this really quickly. If you're using white and you're adding in white to a color to make it lighter, just be mindful that white will usually also make it cooler and it will make it look a little chalky. So you may want to, especially if you're working, let's say, with greens and you're painting a tree and you wanted to lighten your green, and because it's in sunlight, it's better to add in a little bit of yellow with your white to warm it back up because the white will cool it down, especially if it's a titanium white that you're working with. So just a little note on that because I can't really demonstrate that with the watercolor. Okay, now that I've got all of this blue off of my hand, I wanted to show you, after a sip of coffee here, what we'll be mixing. So I'm going to start off with this lemon yellow, which is a cool yellow, and my brush is incredibly dirty. So let's try this again. So I'm going to grab some lemon yellow down here. And for right now, I'm just going to work with the, I should have reversed these, but I'm going to work with the cool colors and I'll work with the warm colors. I'll work with those separately, and then I'll show you what they look like when you mix them together. So I'm starting off with this lemon yellow, and I'm going to add in some of this phthalo blue, which is also, no, this is an ultramarine blue. This is what happens when you don't lay out your colors correctly. This is the phthalo blue. So I'm going to add just a little bit of that. And something to note too is that when you're working with color mixing, you want to start off with your lighter colors like I did. You don't want to do what I'm doing right now and try to add, add back in your yellow. The darker colors will influence the lighter colors a lot easier than a light color will influence a dark. So it's a question of wasting paint. So just kind of keep that in the back of your mind. If you're mixing, start off with your lighter color and add your darker color back in. I'm going to add a little more yellow to this. And we'll swatch that out. So here I have a really nice kind of vibrant green. I'm going to go even warmer with that. And this is very spring-like. And that is considered a secondary color, right? Because we mixed it from one of our primaries. And we know the secondary colors that are green, orange, and purple. So next we're going to mix up an orange. And I'm going to use this, let's see, we'll use this lemon yellow. And I have some in my palette here, which I may reach for when I run out of that. And I'm going to grab some of this Alizarin Crimson, just a little bit, because it's a darker color, and it will push this over to orange really quick. And grab a little bit more. Here's a secondary color, which is our orange, and I think we could go even a little more red. There we go. And that's even a little bit redder. Okay. And the next color that we want to mix is our purple. So I'm going to stick with this cool phthalo blue and this alizarin crimson. Need some water in there. And there we have a nice purple. Okay, those are our secondary colors. Now I'm going to show you what mixing these warmer primaries looks like. So we have this Cad Yellow, and this is the Ultramarine Blue. And it's a beautiful green, but you can see it's a lot different than this green. So here we have the green mixed from the warm yellow and blue. And let's see, now we're going to make an orange. And this orange is going to be probably a lot more vibrant than this, because we're already starting out with warm colors, and orange is a warm color, so you can already see the difference. Yeah. So you just have to kind of think of it in terms of, you know, what the color already is. I mean, orange is already a warm color, so if I'm mixing an orange from warm colors, it's going to probably be a lot more vibrant. And now we'll do purple. And you'll see probably the biggest difference using these warm colors to mix up purple. Is it like a really earthy purple, and it has its place depending on what it is that you're painting. None of these are bad in and of themselves. It's just whatever your intention is, whatever you're painting. You know, this may not be the purple that I reach for, but it would be useful in some instances. And that's already kind of pushing a brown. So you can see the difference just depending on whether I used a warm or cool version. But when you have a split primary palette like this, you can mix a ton of colors. And I want to show you that by mixing some complements together. So we have a green already going on here. Let me add some more water to this and a little bit more yellow. Okay, so let's say that I'm painting a tree and I've mixed up my green and I've swatched it out. I'm like, yeah, you know, I really like that, but I just feel like it needs to be a little bit more desaturated. And I don't want to add black to it, because when I mix black into a color, it just really, it takes it to a place, it kind of, you can hear my puppy in the background barking. She barks at everything. It just flattens it. It kind of deadens it. That's really not where I'm going. And it's, depending on the type of black you use too, it can actually warm a color up. And if that's just totally not what I'm going for. So instead of using my black to darken the color, I'm going to go ahead and use its complement, and I want to desaturate it. So you can see what's happening here. And this is what we call a mute. It's muting the color. And you can get a really nice rich color muting a color as opposed to adding black. This will help unify your paintings too. If you're desaturating your colors with the complement, then all of the colors on your palette, I mean, you're making from the colors that are there, so you're going to have a nice unified painting. And if I keep adding red to this, I'm going to get a really nice neutral color, or mud. And these have their place. You know, if I'm painting the trunk of the tree, maybe this is a color that I want to use for the trunk of the tree. But I think this is where the mud may come from. Maybe inadvertently mixing complements together. So let's try this. I want to try this purple, and I'm going to grab some yellow because that's the complement. And I'm going to start a pile over here, and I'm just going to grab a little bit of this and mix it in. And I'm going to keep adding it in so you can see just how quickly this goes over to to a brown. And if I were to add just a little bit more blue to this and a little bit more red, you can see it's going to go right to a brown. And then that's the nice thing about working with these muted colors too. You can actually make yourself a little swatch if you wanted and start with your yellow and add a little bit of purple in and swatch that out so that you get an idea of the range of colors that you can make by muting. But you know, this makes a nice yellow ochre, and you don't have to squeeze it out of a tube. You can mix it yourself. And the last one, your new piece of paper, would be our orange. And I'm going to mix this up a little bit more here. Okay. So we have our orange. And I'm going to mute this with this ultramarine blue. And I'm going to add a little bit more. You can get some really beautiful colors this way by adding in complements. But that's how you desaturate any color without having to use black. Now, as far as mixing warm and cool colors together, I showed you on this page, you know, the difference between mixing the cooler colors together and the warmer colors. You just have to ask yourself some questions when you're mixing your paint together. You know, what kind of green am I going for? Is it going to be an olive green? And an olive green has a lot of yellow in it. It's a very warm green. Or is it going to be more of a in the shadows type green that has a lot of blue in it? These will inform your decision on how to mix. So if I wanted to create that cool green with a lot of blue in it, I would probably start off with my cool yellow. And I'm going to wipe some of this away. I would start off with my cool yellow, and I would work with my cool green, or my cool blue, I'm sorry, to make a cool green. And if that's not a cool enough color for me, I would add in a little bit of blue, because I want this this portion of the tree to be in shadow, and I feel like that's really vibrant, right? So if I wanted to mute that back, I would add in a little bit of red. And I'm going to add in some of this warmer red and show you what that looks like. As opposed to I'll put some over here as opposed to this cooler red. So I would probably go with something like this, and I would just start, I would add in a little bit more blue, and that would give me what the color that I would probably want to use for the trees in the shade. Mixing two warm colors together, like I said, will give you a rich earthy color. Mixing two cools together, you'll have more of a vibrant result. And when you mix a warm and a cool together, it just really kind of depends on the color. So let's try this lemon yellow. We'll do the lemon yellow and we'll do our warm blue. And that gives you a nice green as opposed to mixing the two warm colors together. The warm yellow and the warm blue kind of gives you a little bit more of an earthy green. Now I'm going to try this warm yellow. And we're going to pick up our cool blue. And this will give you a nice green as well. And I'm going to do the same thing with the reds or the blues. I'm going to pick up this cool blue. And I'm going to pick up the cool red. And I think we already did this over there. That's the purple that I'm looking for. Actually, I'm going to wipe that out. And let's do our cool blue again and mix it in with the warm red. You can see what's happening here. Now this would be considered, this is a muddy color. And the reason is that purple is typically, I mean, that's a cool color. And if you're trying to mix it, and this is just a very basic way to understand what your result's going to be before you start mixing it on the palette. Whatever color you plan on mixing, and I wanted to mix a purple, that is innately a blue or a cool color. So I would be better off mixing two cool colors together to get a cool color because it will be more vibrant. Mixing a warm red with a cool blue, you can see what happens. Now, if this is the if this is what you're looking for, then by all means mix those two together. But this is where the mud making comes in, and it's just not effective. So I think the last thing that I want to talk about is what happens when you mix all of these together. So if I want to create a nice black color for myself, instead of using it out of the tube, mix all three primaries together. We'll see if I can get enough paint off of here. I think we need a little more yellow. Making your own mixes is a lot of fun because you can really customize your colors, obviously. So if I wanted to work with this black, really dark, nice, beautiful, rich color, but I wanted it to be a little more cool, I would just add more blue in. And this will also give you some really beautiful grays. So there's a nice black color. And I'll show you what this looks like. Let me add a little bit of water to it. Maybe a little bit more. So you can create some really nice neutral colors, knowing how to add complements in, mixing all your primaries together. and pushing it either warm or cool depending on the temperature that you like. So I hope this makes sense, and I'm going to go over this really quick again. You have your primary colors, your secondary colors that you mix from your primaries. A split primary palette is just a warm and a cool of each of your primaries. And complements are the colors that lie opposite each other on the color wheel, and your complements will, when added into a color, will neutralize the color or mute it. And it's a great way to desaturate without having to add black. If you want to make your own black, mix all of your primary colors together. And if you want to change the temperature, just to add in a warmer color or add in a cooler color to your black mixture. Now, when you're mixing colors and you want to avoid making mud, ask yourself first, what color is it that I want to mix? If it's cooler or if it's warmer, what temperature is it? And then pull from your paint tubes or your palette. If you want a vibrant, cool color, mix two cool colors together. If you're looking to make a vibrant, warm color, mix two warmer colors together. It's when you start mixing the warms together to create a cool color, that's when you start making mud. So that's how I wanted to get this across, was that it doesn't have to be super complicated. You can put these principles into action as you're painting. You just have to ask yourself a couple of questions before you start mixing your paint. And I hope this has helped. If you've got any questions or comments, feel free to post them at the end of this blog post, and I'll get back to you. And in the meantime, have fun doing this, and maybe start off with taking all of your colors and deciding and looking at them and asking yourself, if I pull out my palette card here, I can very easily just go through here and decide which ones are cool and which ones are warm, right? So I can look at these two yellows, and obviously this is a cooler yellow than this. My Naples yellow, my Aussie gold, these are warm colors. Same thing with your reds. That will be extremely useful. These are more, these are warmer red colors. And then we start pushing into the cooler reds. So that might be something that you want to do just to help yourself out, and will get you more practice in identifying which colors are cool and which are warm. So I will leave you with that, and happy mixing, and I will see you next time.